Oh, there we go. There. Oh yeah, I think we're. Mhm. Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. It's 10 a.m. Um, today's Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, and you guys are biology 1161, section 90, my human anatomy lab, um, my Wednesday morning lab. And welcome back. Like I said, today's Wednesday. Last Wednesday, we started the human osteology and we finished the skull and related bones. And so today we're going to finish up the rest of the skeleton. And after that, you'll be ready for your second practical, which is next week. So next Wednesday at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 10:30, you take your practical 2 online on my courses. And again, remember, you have to Zoom and see. I have to see live video feed of your face during the Zoom, and that's it. So, and you have to Zoom in order to get credit for the exam, because that's how I proctor exams. I can't proctor it. I can't watch you take it. I can't wait. Can't watch you. If I can't watch you take it, I can't give you credit for it. So that's just how it goes. So don't fall into that. So make sure, and then come early. Don't be trying to log on at 10 o'clock. Okay, you have all your ducks in a row before that. Make sure you're all set and ready to go. Okay, and then so when 10 o'clock comes, bam, you can just start and you're already online and already Zoom in and everything. So do that. I normally open the waiting room or whatever, start letting students in 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. And then a couple of minutes beforehand, I'll, again, give you instructions and so forth, reminders. And then that's it. So be ready for next week. So without further ado, let's finish up your human osteology stuff here. Let me look for my pointer. There it is, my laser pointer. And advance through. This is all we did last week, all the skull stuff. And then here, the rest of the skeleton. Next are the vertebrae. You maybe have 5 different types of vertebrae. And then for my class, my lab, you just recognize them. Okay. There's all kinds of stuff to pick out, but I'm just going to omit that for this online version. And so if you recognize a vertebra as a cervical vertebra, that's good enough for me. And so how do you do that? Well, all vertebrae have this large opening right here, which is called the vertebral foramen. In addition to that, they have these 2 little holes on the side, which are called transverse foramen. So if you see these extra 2 holes, it's one of the ones that's in the neck, and those are cervical vertebrae. Okay. Now there's 7 of them, and they're all exactly the same in the sense that they have transverse foramen, but the first 2 are modified. And so I share with you those modified vertebrae, and this is modified C1, the atlas as it is called. It's modified in the sense that it's lacking a centrum. It doesn't have a centrum. You see that? Let me page up. See the centrum there? No centrum here. What's going on? Well, its centrum has been dislocated, and it's actually fuses to C2. And so C2 is going to look different as well. So C1 and C2 are different. That C1 is the atlas. It's lacking a centrum. And then so we just refer these as arches. Okay, so this is a like a you call it a ventral arch and a dorsal arch, something like that. But anyway, here's C2, and it looks like it has an extra little nub right there. So the C2, you can't hardly see the transverse foramen. They're there. They're kind of covered up, but with this extra little thing sticking right here, that's C2, the axis as they call it. So those are the first two cervical vertebrae. Then this is pretty easy right here, this picture, and I'm going to use the same pictures on your test. The next 12 vertebrae, your thoracic vertebrae, of course, those are the ones that have ribs attached to them. Obviously, if you see ribs attached to it, thoracic. In my lab, it's not like this. The ribs aren't attached, but you can tell if you looked at the vertebrae, you can see that it's left behind these like little smooth like scars where the ribs attach, and those are called rib facets. And so if you see a vertebra with rib facets on it, you know it's a thoracic vertebra. It's the only thing it could be, okay? And then the next vertebrae, those are the last 5 of the articulating vertebrae. These are the ones in your lower back, and those are the lumbar vertebrae. And you can recognize lumbar vertebrae as lumbar. I always tell students to ask yourself 2 questions. First, do you see transverse foramen? No, you don't. So if you don't see transverse foramen, it's not one of the ones in the neck, so it's not cervical, so you can scratch that. And the second question you ask, do you see rib facets? Remember I said it's going to form a little, like a smooth, like a little scar, either here or here or here or here, for where the ribs attach. If you don't see that, well, then it can't be thoracic. So if it can't be cervical, it can't be thoracic, it has to be lumbar. Okay, and that's what you have right here. Now you have 5 different types of vertebrae. The first 3 are articulating. The last 2 groups, they're fused, so that's pretty easy to recognize. And so this view, this is a anterior view and a posterior view, or a ventral view and a dorsal view of those fused vertebrae, which forms the sacrum and the coccyx. The sacrum counts as 1. So this is of the 206 bones in your body. This is 1, and this is 1. This is 1, and this is this is 1. But for some reason, in this picture that I have, it shows it broken in 2. It's not normally like that, but anyway, it's usually fused together. But the sacrum is you can see like from here to here. That's 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5 vertebrae all fused together. See that? And then this one is these are supposed to be connected, but it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Usually 5 also caudal vertebrae that fuse together. But like I said, they're fused, so they're considered 1 bone. So this is a bone, this is a bone, this is the sacrum, this is the coccyx, or you call that your tailbone. There are a few things that I think you should know that I pointed out, like number 3, the coccyx, whole thing's the coccyx. Number 5 is the sacral canal, and that's this passageway from here, it runs up underneath here. Remember I told you that the vertebral foramen is the hole in the vertebrae, because these are all vertebrae, but fused together it forms like this tunnel under here. That tunnel is the sacral canal, and that's the number 5 right there. And that's what they're talking about, this space underneath here. Then there's a pre-zygapophysis. See, this is this articulating facet right here and here. This is a joint, an articulation site where the sacrum articulates with L5. And so the L5 and the sacrum come together right here. And this is called the pre-zygapophysis. The pre-zygapophysis always articulates with a post-zygapophysis in front of it. I didn't point that out, but that's what this is right here. So that's just something else to know. And then number 7, the sacral crest. See the number 7 right there? That's this whole thing. And basically that's just the fused spinous process. All vertebrae have a spinous process. Well, you know, this thing right here, this thing right here, this thing right here, those are all called spinous processes. And so when they're all fused together like this, forming this crest, that's the sacral crest. So that's all that is. And then number 9, the sacral foramina. Well, these holes right here, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs of holes. There's ventrally and then dorsally 1, 2, 3, 4. That's for the emergence of the sacral spinal nerves. All the vertebrae have accompanying spinal nerves emerging, and then they exit the dorsal body cavity by intervertebral foramina. And the intervertebral foramina are holes or foramen that are created by articulating vertebrae. It's like you have one vertebra like this, has like a little notch, and another vertebra underneath it has like a notch like this, and they come together and it forms like a hole like that, and then the nerve comes out of it. Well, here, since these are all fused together, it just makes a formed opening. And so there you go. These are the sacral foramina. And then finally, the sacral hiatus, number 10. This is kind of a unique feature right here. That's this little notch that's cut out right here. And what this is, it's kind of a special thing because all vertebrae have this top piece right here. See this top piece right here? And this top piece right here, which is called the lamina. This is the centrum of the body, and then you got the lamina, all right? Well, S5, this is, S5, the vertebra. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. It's missing its lamina. So you just got this opening. The roof is open right there. And that's for the emergence of the last 4 pairs of spinal nerves. These first 4 holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, are for the emergence of the sacral spinal nerve 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, but you have 5 sacral spinal nerves and 1 pair of coccygeal spinal nerves. So that's 4 together, and they all exit the dorsal body cavity right here by way of the sacral hiatus. When we study the nervous system, you'll learn all about that. But anyway, for this bone, this notch is cut out right there. It's called the sacral hiatus. I think you should know that. See, that's it for the sacrum. Next is the sternum. There's actually 3 parts of the sternum I talk about in lecture: the manubrium, the gladiolus, and the xiphoid process. And I said, sometimes you see the xiphoid process, sometimes you don't. In skeletons that you don't see it, it's because it's cartilage and it's not preserved. And older skeletons that, from an individual that's like, in their 30s or 40s or older, it'll be fused right here as a bony element. But in younger skeletons in the teens and 20s, it hasn't ossified yet, so it's missing. So in this picture, that's all I could find. You got the whole thing is the sternum, but we recognize 3 parts, but here I can only show you 2 parts, the manubrium and the gladiolus. The manubrium, that's the top third. It receives the clavicles, the collarbones fit right here. And then down here, that's where your first costal cartilage, your first rib attaches right here. And all these others, all the other ribs, well, not all the other ribs, but ribs 2 through 7, all merge in these little divots right here. And these little divots are called rib facets or costal facets for the attachment of the ribs, or the costal cartilages of the ribs, the cartilaginous part of the ribs. Anyway, there's your sternum. And again, it counts as 1 bone, the sternum, okay? And then the ribs, you have 24 pairs of ribs. And I could really make this course certainly more challenging by having you identify all 24 individually. This is the left number 12. This is the right number 5, and this is the left number 2. I'm not going to do that. I just want you to know the general anatomy of a rib. Okay, I kind of point these out here with these little numbers. Number one is the head of the rib. That's the part that attaches to the centrum of the thoracic vertebra. Then number two is the neck. And so that's just this kind of smooth area right here where there's nothing going on. And then all of a sudden you get this little bump. The bump is called a tubercle. Yeah, you have tubercles throughout the skeleton, okay? And a tubercle is usually a raised process for something attaches there, or the bone anchors to something. So there's a bump for some reason. So the part of the rib between the tubercle and the head is the neck. So head, neck, tubercle. And the tubercle is there to attach to the transverse process of the thoracic vertebra, okay? And then this long, middle part, that's just the shaft, right? And then it's kind of chopped off or truncated like right here where the cartilage takes over. That's just the opposite end that's going to eventually attach to the sternum. So we just call it the sternal end. So the sternal end, the head, neck, tubercle, and then, that's it. And now these are different vertebrae. This is like, this is the first one. This is one in the middle. And this is like one of the last ones, one of the floating ribs. They all have the basic same anatomy. But of course it's kind of graduated, but head, neck, tubercle, shaft, sternal end, etc. It's just kind of still there a little bit. But anyway, rib anatomy, not real complicated. And here's your clavicle, your collarbone. See, it's kind of S-shaped. I think the only other thing you might confuse this with is maybe a rib, because it's kind of rib-like and it attaches to the sternum. And so there's, two different ends to identify. This number one, this like a flat end versus kind of round end. The flat end, that's the lateral end, out on the side towards the shoulder, or it's called the acromial end, because this is the end that attaches to the acromion process of the scapula, and we'll take a look at that. Then in the middle is just the body, okay, they kind of curve like that. Then the medial end, that's the end like on your sternum, that's the sternal end. So number three. So the round end is the sternal end, the flat end is the acromial end, or the lateral medial, either way, okay? And here's your scapula. This is a dorsal view of the right scapula, like you're looking at somebody's back, but on the right shoulder. And I got a whole kind of bunch of cool stuff for you to identify. Number one, the coracoid process. Remember, if you were in my lecture today, I talked about this when I talked about the coracobrachialis. This is what it attached to. This is the fused element right there, right? This little bitty thing right there. Here's the socket in the background. And then right there, can't hardly see, but it's long, but it's pointing the other direction. But that's the coracoid process. That's that third pectoral girdle element in non-mammal pectoral girdles. So if you're looking at the pectoral girdle of a turtle or an alligator or a lizard or something, you'd have a scapula, and you'd have a clavicle, and you'd have a coracoid. But this is a mammal. In all mammals, the coracoid fuses with the scapula, and there it exists. Right there is a little process. Now, number three, the superior border. You look at the shoulder blade, it looks like a triangle, right? You got three sides, 1, 2, 3. So this top side right here, that's the superior border. That's what you call it. And then let's see, number 4, the supraspinatus fossa. That's this. Here's this spine right here, and we talked about the supraspinatus, the muscle. Well, this is where it rests in this big depression right here. This big depression on this side of the spine, superior supraspinatus. Get it? So the supraspinatus fossa is to accommodate the supraspinatus, the muscle. Okay, and then number 6, okay, that's the scapular spine. This thing that separates these two fossae. And then number 7, where is it right here? Number 7, that's the vertebral border, or the medial border. That's the second side of your triangle. 1, 2, all the way from like this. That's the medial border, or vertebral, because the spine, the vertebrae would be like right, vertebral. No. Yes. Wait. What must? Yes. Did I tell you that this is a left scapula, not a right? I was getting kind of backward. Yeah, this is the. Did I tell you this is the right one? Yeah. No, this is the left one. Gosh. Yeah, yeah. Because the spine is right here, and if the spine is right here, then your arm's over here. Yeah. This is the left one, not the right one. Anyway, this is the medial border or the vertebral border. It's named after the vertebrae because the vertebrae on this side. Okay, and then the infraspinatus fossa, number 8. That's just this big. Excuse me, I was waiting for that and to sneeze. But anyway, this big depression right here on this side of the spine, underneath the spine. This is the spine. That's to accommodate the infraspinatus muscle, the infraspinatus fossa. Okay. And then the third side, you have 1, 2, 3, this big long side right here. That's the axillary border or the lateral border. Remember that your arm's out here. That's your armpit right here. And so this is the border that's continuous with your armpit, or it's lateral facing the side, because remember, this is medial, this is lateral, and of course up here superior. Okay, that's that. And glenoid fossa number 11. That's in the background there. The surface right here, that's the surface where the head of the humerus actually articulates. So that's the actual shoulder socket right there. And then finally, the acromion process. I told you about the acromial end, right? This is where right here is where that flat part of the clavicle articulates. So the clavicle attaches right here. So that's what this whole thing is, the acromion process for the clavicle. Okay. So there you go. There's your scapula, parts of your scapula. All right. Now, here's your coxal bone. This is, let me get this right. It says os coxa. That's another way to say coxal bone. Lateral view, but this is the left one. So as you're looking at somebody's left hip, and so the head of the femur, the left leg would attach right here. That's the hip socket right there. And so the other bone would be on the other side. Okay. Now this looks like a lot of stuff to identify, and the reason why it looks like a lot of stuff, because remember, the coxal bone is actually 3 bones in one. It's an ilium, an ischium, and a pubis all fused together around the hip socket. So here's the features fall into 3 categories: structures of the ilium, structures of the pubis, and structures of the ischium. So we begin number 1. Where is it labeled? Right here. The anterior superior iliac spine. So iliac means of the ilium. So ilium is everything from here up. And so if you look right here in the front, this is anterior, this is posterior, anterior. There's 2 little bumps right here. See that? This bump right here is the anterior superior iliac spine, number 1. This number 16 down here, look, right here, that's the anterior inferior iliac spine. So these 2 anterior spines, one's superior, one's inferior. So the anterior inferior iliac spine, anterior inferior iliac spine. Okay, you with me? Now I'm going to skip over to the back right here so we can learn all these 4 at the same time. There's 2 spines in the back, 3 and 4. 3 is the posterior superior iliac spine. Get it? Posterior superior iliac spine. And the number 4 right there, that's the posterior inferior iliac spine. So you got anterior spines, posterior spines. One's above the other, one's superior to the other. So anterior superior iliac spine, posterior superior iliac spine, anterior inferior iliac spine, posterior inferior iliac spine. I know it's very wordy, but it's not that bad if you just kind of calm down and look at it. So there they are, the iliac spines. There's 4 of them. okay? Go back up here to iliac crest number 2. That's this whole surface right here. That's basically your love handle, the top right there, the whole thing's number 2 there, number 2 there. The whole thing's the iliac crest. And then that's it, I think. Well, no, here number 5 is the greater sciatic notch. That's this this big notch right here in the back. So the greater sciatic notch. There's a sciatic nerve. And then there, number 6 is just the ilium. So the ilium is the whole thing from here up. All this is ilium, right? And then number 7, the ischial spine. You see this little bitty bump right there? That's the ischial spine. It's named after the ischium because it's the ischium. And then on the other side of the ischium, number 8, you see right there, that's the lesser sciatic notch. So there's the ischial spine and the notches on either side of it. It's the greater sciatic notch up here, and then the lesser sciatic notch with the ischial spine in the middle. Okay, so it's all kind of associated with the ischium, I guess. And so number 10 is the ischium itself, and the ischium is well, from here back to about here. So if you kind of draw, let's see, kind of like a peace sign. I think I can draw. Watch. Can I draw? I got a thing right here to draw, I think. Where's my pen? Is this pen? Yeah. Like this. Just like that. All of this in the back is ischium. All this in the front is pubis. And then everything above that kind of wedge right there is ilium. So how about that? So let me get back to my pointer. There we go. So ischium, what do you think? Your butt bone right here. That's what you sit on. Number 11, this big hole right there. Remember I talked about the foramen magnum, the largest foramen in your skull? But it's not the largest one in your body. The largest one in your body is number 11 right there. That's the obturator foramen. See that? Number 11, the obturator foramen. And then number 14, the pubis. That's everything like this. This is all pubis. Okay, just like that. And then the acetabulum, number 15, that's your hip socket itself. This whole thing is created by these 3 bones fusing together. And I already showed you the anterior, inferior iliac spine. That's, this one right here. I don't know why they numbered it like that. I guess they numbered it kind of coming around like this. I think I would have named this like right here, number 1, number 2, number 3, and like that. Because these 2 go together. And then these 2 go together. Anyway. There's your coxal bone. It's kind of a busy bone, isn't it? And then your humerus, of course, is your leg bone, your upper arm bone. And what do you need to know on it? Well, so 7 things I pointed out. Number 1, the trochlea. The word trochlea means like spool. Like what you put you buy thread. Thread comes on a spool. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like a little spool right there from here to here. So that's what forms your elbow joint right there. Number 2, the medial epicondyle. Okay, right here, that's this bump on your arm right there. Epicondyle means like above the joint. That's number 2. So this is the medial epicondyle. Number 4 would be the lateral epicondyle, on the other side. Number 3, the olecranon fossa. That's this space right here. That's where your elbow would rest in there. So you're looking at the back of the elbow, back of the humerus, so to speak. And then number 5, this bump right here, that's your deltoid tuberosity. Your shoulder muscle attaches right there. And then on this end, of course, number 6 right here, is the greater tuberosity. And there's a lesser tuberosity, but you just can't see it. So I'm just going to throw that out there. But there's a big bump right here for your tricep or your tricep muscles. Yeah, greater tuberosity. And then, of course, this big round surface right here, that's just the head of the humerus. Okay, so that's all that is. There's your radius. These are the forearm bones. There's two, radius and ulna. This is the radius. Only three things you really need to know in here. Number one is the styloid process. This little styloid means like pointed, it's a little pointy little thing sticking down right there. And this little bump right here, number two, that's the radial tuberosity. It's where it's just named after itself, I guess, the radial tuberosity, a little bump for a muscle attachment. And then this nice round kind of disc-shaped head, just the head of the radius, very distinct looking. So nothing else looks quite like that. But this is the end. Of course, this is the end that's by the elbow, and this is the end that articulating with the wrist. And this will be the surface here will be articulating to the wrist bones, the scaphoid to be precise. Anyway, here's the ulna. Now, I didn't think about this until after I already made this. I labeled all this stuff. This is all Mr. Williams' labeling and stuff. But I hijacked these pictures from another source. But after I already made this, I realized that the orientation of this is completely different than this bone. This is proximal and this is dorsal, but this one's completely opposite. This is proximal and distal is what I meant to say. But this is distal and this is proximal. So in other words, this is the elbow and then this is the wrist. You see what happened? This is up here is going to be the elbow and down here is going to be the wrist. So they're flipped. They should be. I don't know. I guess I didn't take the pictures. I'm just using them. Anyway, doesn't matter. The names of the structures are I'm just being, I guess, a little anal about the whole thing. If I would have done it over, I would put them, in the same orientation. But it doesn't matter. Parts are the same. This is here's your elbow, number two. That hard part right there, number one. That's a one. Yeah, that's number one. That's the olecranon process. That's your olecranon, your elbow. Then number two, remember the trochlea, the spool. All right. This is what grabs a hold of that spool right here. That's the trochlear notch, or sometimes it's called the semilunar notch because it kind of looks like a half moon. Okay. And then this pointy thing sticking up here in the front right here, number three, that's the coronoid process. Coronoid means pointed like a beak. I guess it looks like a little bird's beak. And so you got two processes on either side of the trochlear notch, coronoid process and olecranon process. Okay. And then number four, the radial notch. Remember the round head of the radius? This is where the round head of the radius, it's a little divot right here, right there where my pointer is. That little divot, that's the radial notch, and that's where the head of the radius rests, okay? And then the distal end, that little pointy thing right there on the end, that's a styloid process. You have two styloid processes, associated with the bone, the wrist. And they're always lateral, okay? So anyway, there's your parts. Then the manus, this is the hand, okay? Woo, look at all those leaders. Well, there's all kinds of bones in here. There's 8 carpal bones. There's 5 metacarpal bones, 14 phalanges. And, you should know them all, And so I go through and I point them out like this is I'm using their numbers. These numbers came with the picture already, but I kind of went through and picked them out like this. There's not everything in here. Like, what's number one? I don't even see number one. Oh, well, where's number one? I see a 2. What is number 2? See, two is not part of the hand. That's actually the radius right there. And number 17, that's the ulna. Anyway, I start with number 3 because that's this bone right here. That's the scaphoid. Scaphoid articulates with the radius. Number 4, the capitate. That's this big bone right here in the middle. It's kind of continues with your middle finger right there. You see that? And then number 5, the trapezium. Right here, it's under. Okay, these are your metacarpals. It's underneath the first metacarpal right there, trapezium. And number 6, the trapezoid. That's right next to the trapezium, underneath the second metacarpal right here. Okay. And then it's metacarpal 1. That's number 7. Okay, that's this bone right here. All right. All your metacarpals are numbered. You see, like this number 8 is pointing to all these. These would be metacarpals 2, 3, and 4, and they don't point to this one. But they're all numbered, and that's their name. That's the name this bone. That's metacarpal number 1. Name this bone. This is metacarpal number 2. Name this bone. This is metacarpal number 5. So that's pretty easy. Okay, that's how they're named. Okay, so I don't point to every single one of them, or I don't label every one of them. And then the finger bones from here, all the bones out from or distal to the metacarpals or bones of the fingers, or the phalanges, or the bones of the digits. And plural is phalanges, and singular is phalanx. And so, individual bones would be a phalanx. Okay, and so right here, proximal phalanx 1, that's number 9. That's this bone right here. That's you got 2 bones in the thumb. That's your thumb. This is the proximal phalanx right there. And then this is the distal phalanx. And so you can see that proximal phalanx and then distal phalanx 10. Yeah, see distal phalanx 1. So this bone right here, number 15, which is not on the list. I guess I could have did that. This would be distal phalanx number 2. There's a middle phalanx number 2. And then proximal phalanx number 2. But this one right here is proximal phalanx number 3. And this is middle phalanx number 3. And this is distal phalanx number 3. See how that works, how they're numbered? Okay. Okay. Back to the wrist bones. Number 18 right here. That's the lunate. All right. And then number 19, this little bitty bone right there. That's the pisiform. Remember, that's the sesamoid bone in your wrist. It's also known as the ulnar sesamoid because it's a sesamoid bone. It's ulnar sesamoid or pisiform, the same thing. And then 20 is the triangular bone, or some books will call it the triquetrum or the triquetuate or the triquetual. I like to call it the triangular bone, number 20. And that's always underneath the pisiform right there, okay? And then the hamate, number 21, that's right here underneath these 2 bones. Remember, this is the 5th and 4th metacarpals. And if you look at both of these bones, both of them articulate with the hamate. So if you start right here, the hamate, capitate, trapezoid, trapezium, pisiform, triangulum, lunate, and scaphoid. Remember the mnemonic? If you're in my lecture, I taught you Mr. Williams' mnemonic. Henry caught 10 turtles plus 3 little snakes. Did you get that? Henry caught 10 turtles plus 3 little snakes. For hamate, capitate, trapezoid, trapezium, pisiform, triangulum, lunate, scaphoid. Ta-da! There you go. I like my mnemonic opposed to there's others that are out there, like starting here with the scaphoid. Students like their professors to teach complex hypotheses, right? Like students like their professors to teach complex hypotheses. And there's others. Sally left the party to take Charlie home. Scared lovers try positions they can't handle. or never lower Tilly's pants, grandma might come home. That's using some kind of older terms, but anyway. I like Henry. Henry got 10 turtles plus Filo snakes because I can always find the hamate. Hamate's the only bone. You have there are 8 bones. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 distal bones and 1, 2, 3, 4 proximal bones. And this bone right here is the only distal carpal bone that articulates with 2 metacarpals. All these other metacarpals, metacarpal 3, metacarpal 2, metacarpal 1, they all have their own distal carpal bone to articulate with. Okay, see these, but not these last 2. These last 2 are articulated with just 1 bone. So I guess, you know, the hamate can handle both of these 2. Because if you think about your 4th and 5th digit, they're not very substantial. Most of your force is from the first 3. You got most of your strength in these first 3. So I guess they need their own stability. You know, that's one way of thinking about it. So they're not that big. That little pisiform is easy to find. That's a little P-shaped bone right there. And it's just always sitting on top of the triangulum. And then a little lunate, scaphoid. Learn it, however. Because I'll point to these and ask you, name this bone, name this bone, name this bone. And if you need to use your mnemonic, use your mnemonic. Okay. And make sure you can, identify any of these bones. Okay. There's that. Now for the lower appendages, just kind of starting over, and you get your femur, that's your thigh bone, parts of it, number 1 and 2 and 3. Lateral, that's this whole smooth surface right here, lateral condyle, because this is the outside of the leg. This is the inside of the leg. Look, you see the head, that's going to be the part that goes in the socket, so it's on the outside. Lateral condyle, medial condyle, and this little notch in the middle is the intercondylar notch. So there you go, there's that. Because if you're looking at the back of the femur, okay, I'm only going to show you one angle. If you flip it over, there's anatomy on the other side too, but I'm sparing you that. Number 4, the linea aspera. That's, you see there's a line that runs down the back of the femur. It's only in the back. That's how you tell the front from the back. It's kind of like, if you look at, you know what it kind of reminds me of? The linea aspera. If you're saying like those pantyhose, they have the line that runs down the back of your thigh. That's the linea aspera. You don't have that in the front. It looks stupid to have it going in the front, right? It's always in the back for some reason. But anyway, that's the linea aspera. It's the back. And then 5 and 6, that's the lesser trochanter and greater trochanter. Remember you had tuberosities, and that trochanter is just a big tuberosity. So this is a trochanter, but a smaller one. The greater trochanter is this real big one right here. Greater trochanter and lesser trochanter number 5, yeah, and then greater trochanter number 6. Okay, I got it right. And then what's number 7 is the neck. That's how you can tell a femur from humerus. The femur always has a much longer neck. The humerus, it looks like just the head is just sitting on the shaft with hardly any neck. But if you got a nice long neck like that, you're looking at a femur. And that's true for all mammals, all vertebrates really. Because you look at an alligator's femur, it looks, kind of sort of like this too. Number 8's the head. That's the part that fits in the socket or the acetabulum, right? Here's your kneecap, the patella. Not a whole lot about it other than, one surface versus the next. It says patellar anterior or front view, and then there's the posterior view. This is a surface that actually articulates with, or not, doesn't really articulate, it kind of rests on the knee joint, so to speak, okay? That's all. Just recognize this as the patella, one surface versus the next, anterior versus posterior view. Then the tibia, this is your lower shin bone, the big one. Remember, this is the lower leg bones, or the bones of the shank, as they call it in the lecture. The tibia is the medial one, so this is the one on the inside. So this, the medial one, is the anterior surface. Then this would be somebody's right tibia, okay? I didn't put that up there, but that's what this is. So up here is the knee joint. This is the proximal end. This is the distal end. And this little hook that kind of comes off the side right there, that's the medial malleolus. So you know medial, it's all because it's on the medial surface. And a malleolus is kind of like a styloid process, but bigger. So it's kind of what grips, it's kind of gripping the talus, even the first ankle bone. It kind of stabilizes it right there. You imagine the talus kind of tucked in right there. So the malleolus, that's that you feel that bump on the inside of your knee, or not your knee, your ankle. That's what you're feeling right there in the medial malleolus. Number two, the anterior crest is a ridge right here on the front of your shin. You know, if you hit on the coffee table, run your finger down that. You feel a little bumpity bumps on there. There's little calcium deposits. That's what forms on the anterior crest there. You get little knots on there from banging them on stuff. Mine are like hitting the bumper hitches. Oh man, I hate that. You know, bumper hitch. There's no pain like that. Golly, I do it all the damn time. I did it just the other day, just running into a bumper hitch. Put another calcium deposit on my cranial crest, anterior cranial crest, or anterior tibial crest. The cranial crest is completely different. Humans don't have that. The number three, the tibial tuberosity. This is a bump right here. That's that bump underneath your knee, that hard little knot that's on the top of your shin right there, underneath your knee. That's where the patellar tendon attaches right there. And then all this stuff on the top of the tibia, 4, 5, and 6. 4 is the lateral condyle, and then number 6 is the medial condyle, and there's this kind of raised portion between them is the intercondylar eminence. The portion comes up between them. This is what receives the femur, because the femur has condyles, and so the femur has a medial condyle, a lateral condyle, an intercondylar notch, and so that all kind of fits together right there. So there's that, your tibia. Here's your fibula. The fibula is not real impressive. There's not a whole lot going on with it, just know one end from the next. It's kind of like a little pointy stalactite looking structure right here. That's the lateral malleolus. Remember the tibia has a medial malleolus, kind of grip the talus, and then here's the other side, the lateral surface, so to speak. So the lateral malleolus, and then the other end, the head, is kind of more roundish, that attaches to the lateral condyle of the tibia, okay, underneath it. So there's the fibula. Then the foot, the pes. Remember the hand is also called the manus, the foot's pes. And it's almost exactly like the hand. It's divided into 3 sets of bones. Remember the hand is the carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. The foot is tarsals with a T, tarsals, then metatarsals and phalanges. But the difference is, of course, all the names are different. But there's only 7 tarsal bones where there's 8 carpal bones. And at first, it kind of seems kind of scary and confusing, all these little bones. They're not as bad as the hand. The bones are larger and the names are less diverse, I guess you can say. So number 1, the calcaneus, that's your big heel bone. It's all this from here all the way up to here is your heel bone, the calcaneus. Number 2, here's the talus. The talus is where your foot articulates with the tibia. So the 2 T's go together. T for talus, T for tibia, okay? So the tibia rests right here, and it extends forward a little bit. So all of this right here is talus. And of course, this is the inside of your foot. This is medial. And of course, this is lateral over here, because that's going to be your big toe. Your big toe is always medial. Your little piggy toe, the one wee all the way home, that one is always lateral. So medial surface, lateral surface. And so right here, this is, medial, and your calcaneus is more lateral. Number 3, the navicular. That's right in front of the talus, right here. It's kind of squished looking bone. See, I say it's squished because it looks like it's just kind of supporting all three of these bones, and it really is. That's the, I'll get to those in a second. Let me just go these in order. The cuboid number 4, this is kind of, remember your calcaneus comes up like this, and it rests in front of the cuboid. And if you look carefully at the cuboid in front of the calcaneus, this is kind of like your foot's equivalent to the hamate in the sense that it supports two metatarsals, where the hamate supported two metacarpals. And so that's what's going on here. So these two bones, this is metatarsal 5, metatarsal 4, and they both articulate with the cuboid. And then each one of these articulates with its own. And this is kind of like the capitate trapezoid trapezium, but we don't call them that in the foot. These are collectively called the cuneiforms. And there's 3. There's a lateral, intermediate, and medial cuneiform, or I like to call them the first, second, and third. And well, here I have them as lateral, number 7, and number 6, intermediate. Is that a 5? Yeah, it must be. That's medial. Yeah, cuneiform. So medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform. Or you can call them the first, second, third cuneiform. And that, I don't know why I did this. Maybe I don't know. Maybe so that's normally what I do, because I typed this up, and I'm not violating my own rule. Maybe I did that just to stress and use fewer numbers, I guess. But you know your big toe is your first digit, right? And this is your first metatarsal. And so this one is your first cuneiform. See how it works? Second toe, second metatarsal, second cuneiform. Third toe, third metatarsal, third cuniform. Now these two go together, so this isn't a cuneiform, this is called a cuboid. So there's no really mnemonic for learning the bones of the feet. Not a good one anyway. I just tell students, I just learn it. These 3, the cuneiforms, first, second, third, or medial, intermediate, lateral. We do it like that. Cuboid, big calcaneus, talus, navicular. It's not that bad. Although one semester I had students try to make one up. And I said, if you make up a good one, I'll give you some extra credit for it. So I was flooded with all these potential mnemonics for the foot. And, people were, trying to do a Henry caught 10 turtles plus 3 little snakes with a foot. But they were all terrible. I didn't like any of them. But there was one I do remember. I thought it was kind of cute. You can use it if you want to. Starting with the talus. T, C, N, and then M, I, L, and C. Yeah, that's how they did it. Tiny children need milk. M-I-L-C instead of a K. Tiny children need milk. M-I-L-C. C for cuboid. Okay. M, medial. I for intermediate cuneiform. And then L for lateral cuneiform. Get it? Or first, second, third. The end. So, like I said, it wasn't going to take long today. Like last week, it took about 30, 40 minutes. And today, same thing. And so we're done. So that's it. So do you, wait, what did I just do? I don't know what that was. Anyway, you guys have any questions? Anybody?
I have a question.
Okay, good.
Since you didn't go over the muscles, is that going to be on a practical?
I did go over the muscles. I showed you the muscles. And yeah, it's going to be on your practical. Yeah. Remember that there was 2 pictures.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, the models. Remember there was the first lab when I went over the skin model.
Yeah, I remember
And I
now.
showed, yeah, and then there was models of the muscles, but I said don't worry about that because just I don't know, those pictures were meant for the students to use in lab to look at the model in lab. I said I'm not going to do that. So to replace that, what I did is I included 2 pictures, anterior view and posterior view of the human skeletal muscles. I said just learn those pictures. So that's all you got to know. And I say didn't go over it. Well, I didn't, sit there and point there, and that would have been kind of redundant to sit there and just read all the names. So you can do that on your own. So, but yeah, no, study those 2 pictures. I mean, that's all you got to do. And I'll use those same pictures again on your practical to ask you questions. So I think that fair. It's not too bad. So yeah, you're definitely going to have some muscle questions. Yeah. So anything else? You guys? No? Are you sure? How I lost you guys. I tucked your little picture away. I don't know how to get it to come back. So I can't see you. Anyway, okay, well, no more questions. If you do between now and then, you can always shoot me an email or whatever. And so you'll study, look at all your pictures and your PowerPoints and your pictures. You have pictures on my courses too. Not everything's in the PowerPoint. I think the only thing that's in the PowerPoint is your bones. Yeah. And then there's the skin picture and then the 2 pictures of the muscles. And that's it. And so I think you guys will do all right. Okay. And so, but if you have questions between now and next week, just shoot me an email. Okay. All right. Well, I'll see y'all then. Good luck. There you are. Now I can see you. All right.